Good day and welcome to this episode of CodeAlong with gOZie. We'll be looking at CSS, the display property. The display property is the most important CSS property for controlling layout. This property specifies if and how an element is displayed. It has a lot of possible values, but we're going to look at the basic ones, just like we did in the background CSS background section. The first is the value of block. So let's create a new page for this. CSS Display.html. Okay, so create the basic structure, changes to CSS Display. Okay, and we have a div h1 welcome, and let's have a paragraph. Okay, and the paragraph is Lauren 5. Okay, so let's have another one. And let's have final paragraph, but this time it's a Lauren let's make Lauren 50, and I would like us to assign a span here to wrap this with a span. Okay, somewhere here, span. Okay, and let's create a new CSS file for this, and display CSS. You mustn't have all the CSS files different like this, but for your practice purposes, I'm putting them in different files so it gets to make sense to you when you're studying them. Okay, so let's link it. CSS / display CSS. Okay, now some episodes ago we talked about block and inline elements, and I told you that block elements start on a new line because they are meant to occupy the full width of whatever device they are being viewed on. Now, one more thing you need to know about them is that they come with the default value for display being block. So we're going to look at the first value for CSS display we're going to look at today is the block. Okay, so by default, all block elements like paragraph, by default, the browser assigns a display of block. That's the way they are. Okay, so let's change it. Let's create a class dot change to block. Okay, and have the display block. Let's assign this class to an inline element like span. Span is supposed to be an inline element. Let me create another class so we know dot red text background color, background color. Okay, let's make it tomato, and I'd like to assign it to span class span. Okay, so let's look at this page. Okay, nothing spectacular. Our h1 is on a different line because it's a block element. Paragraphs are on different lines because they're block elements. Our span, we just mark the span. Okay, so let's add this other class we created to the span. Yes, space, another one. So you could see the syntax. An element could have as many classes as possible. Okay, so let's look at what this effect you just automatically converted an inline tag to a block tag. It's just occupying the full width of the screen and starting on a new line. Okay, so let's look at inline. Let's change a block tag to an inline element. So change to inline. So change this to inline, and a paragraph is a block element. So let's change it to an inline element. Okay, you won't see the effect now until I assign it to the one just under it. Both of them will now exist on the same line. Okay, so the display, just like I said, it's very important for the layout. Now, let's look at another display property. Very important one is display hide. It is used to clear an element from the screen. So normally I'll assign it a class hide, so I'll know what I'm doing. Display none. Okay, so if I assign this class to this div, you're not going to see the div on the screen again. It will be hidden. Everything's cleared because I assigned the class hide, which has the value none for display. Okay, be sure you want this before you do it. It could be a pain. Okay, now let's get into a very important display value. It's called flex. Basically, it's an advanced CSS concept, but it's very vital for what we'll be building on Saturday. We've looked at block, block for layout, display inline, display none, and the other CSS property that's important when it comes to layout is positioning. We're still going to handle that, but now we are looking at flexbox, which is basically a layout element that helps us produce a flexible layout. What do I mean by flexible? Whatever we have on the screen, okay, it's not complicated anyway, so we wouldn't know how much this does not respond to different screens, okay, but we don't know how much this will not respond to different screen sizes, like the mobile or the tablet or the TV. But for us to build a layout that responds to different viewports, we use the flexbox. Now, to assign to create a flexible design with flexbox, we are supposed to assign the value of display flex to a div or a container element containing all the elements you want to make flexible. So let's do that. Enough of all the grammar. So let's say we want to contain these three divs. First div, second and third. Okay, second, third. Okay, so if you want to contain this, and first of all, let's look at what we have for the three of them. Okay, different divs, they're block elements. Now, what do we have to do to put them on to put them on the same line? Basically, make them inline and make them look good. There's so many ways to go about it. You can use your positioning, you can use your floating. Those topics you're going to handle them. But the best way to get that done, given the concept of responsive design, is to use the flex. So like I said earlier, the first thing to do is to create a parent. So let's use section for the parents, and we throw them in, and I'll create a class for the parents, and I'll call it flex container. Okay, now I'll get there, and I'll style the parents as flex container, and I'll change the display to flex. Now, for the children of this parent, I'm going to style them like this. The class. Let me introduce you to a new syntax. If you want to tell the browser to locate a particular element that is within a particular child or children of a particular element, you have to identify that element like I'm identifying the flex container. Then you either use the right angle bracket to tell the browser that whatever will come next should be the child of what's on the left. Okay, so div. This means whatever the style I have here should be for any div that is found within an element that has the class flex container. Okay, so let's just run some small so you see how it goes. So let's put blue here, blue, and you see. Okay, they're on the same line because the parent is flex. Let me comment this off so you get to see just the selector. Okay, so just because of this, I said flex container for every div in. A faster shortcut anyway is just leave a space in between. This just means div that's found within a container. Please notice the difference between this and our grouping selector. The grouping selector will have a comma. This means style any element with the class flex container with this, and also style any other div, not necessarily the div within it. Now, if you want to instruct the browser to style div within the flex container, it must just be a space, or put the right angle bracket. So whichever is convenient for you, do that. Now, because we have the flex will now we'll look at flex direction in a moment, but this now puts all the div. This puts all the divs within the flex container on the same line, and then this assigns a background color to them. Now, okay, I don't think this is basically what I want to do. I wanted to assign the background color of blue to the parent and give this guy a white or a whitish color, and then pad it like 40 px and provide margin 2, margin of 20 px. So let's look what we'll have. Okay, it's if you've ever tried to place divs beside each other on the same line, you would agree with me that this is the fastest and the easiest way to get this done. Flex is not as simple as this, but I try to make this class as basic as possible. As we move along, we see I gradually introduce you to harder concepts. Okay, let's look at the flex direction. Okay, the flex direction defines in which direction the child containers, like in our own case the div, will be stacked. Okay, within the flex parent. Like I said, by default it's rows. Okay, this is rows. So let's change it to columns. So flex in the parent, flex direction. Let's make it a column. Okay, you see it's now column. You have others, column reverse. Let's see what that does. Column reverse just does a reversal. Okay, third is now first and first is now last. Let's undo that. But by default is rows. By default, and we also have a row reversal. Third will now be first and first one. Okay, now moves to the right and then third is first. Okay, let's look at another effect, flex effect. It's called flex wrap. For us to see how that works. We have to create more divs here. We have 3 already. Let's create 3, that's 9, 3, 12, 3, 15. Okay, so let's change the values. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. Okay. Now, let's look at what the concept of a wrap is. It just keeps moving. We asked it to present these the children as we asked the parents to make sure each children are flexed in with the flex direction of row to just keep moving beyond the screen. Now, the idea of a wrap is to tell the browser to, whenever it gets to the edge of any screen, move the next child to the next line. Okay, so to implement that, we assign a value to the flex wrap for the parents. So that's flex wrap and wrap. So let's see what we have. So it gets to the end, and if you keep adjusting the screen, you can see the wrapping. As soon as it gets to the end, it moves. Okay. If you are as inquisitive as I am, you want to know how do we use this, we'll look at it on Saturday during the CodeAlong. Okay, the next flex property we're going to look at is the justify content. It is used to align the flex items. So like if we have a value of center, it justifies them and places all the elements as much as at the middle as possible. So let's do that. So we have a justify the children, so justify content, if we're left or right or center. So let's use center. Of course, by default it's left. So to see what we have, so if I center them, you can now see that they are centered even when we are minimizing them. They will keep readjusting and centering themselves. Okay, you can see, okay, 15, that's one off. If you reduce it down to 3 each, it now looks better and looks centered. Okay, the texts for these ones are bigger, but you can see how centered they are. By default, the value is left. Okay, by default, this is left. Okay, you can also change it to right. Sorry, what am I doing? Yeah, of course, change it right. So why couldn't I get an effect? Okay, look at that. So you can now see that the flex, it's a very powerful, flex box is a very powerful concept. And like I said, it's an advanced class. So if you have any question here, I'm expecting a lot of questions from this section. If you have questions, hit me up on WhatsApp, ask me the question, I get to explain this to you there, or when we come for the CodeAlong on Saturday, we get to look at how this works.